I think most of us can relate to the undeniable attraction of toxic relationships and this idea of being with someone that we know that is not good for us. And sometimes, no matter how hard we try, we're just not able to break free from that person or that relationship. Welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Kayla and I release new videos every Monday about all things BPD. So if that sounds good to you, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below, as well as turn on your notifications to make sure that you're not missing out. Now, as you may have noticed from the color of my shirt, today is Valentine's Day, the day of love. So I thought that it would be appropriate to talk about why healthy relationships feel so boring, while toxic ones feel exciting and invigorating, and why they keep us tied to this person that we're with. When you're in a relationship with someone who is toxic, there's a whole mix of psychological, physical, and emotional things happening simultaneously which deepen your relationship to this person. And so now we might ask ourselves, well, why is it that when we are in healthy relationships, they feel so boring, while we are in toxic ones, they feel exciting and like we're not able to escape them? The first reason is that they make you feel good and that they are exciting, at least initially. So if you are getting invested in someone who is a narcissist or who is emotionally unavailable, those people tend to be very good at giving you a lot of love and care and attention, but in limited doses. So it's a tactic to keep you hooked in that interaction, in that relationship. So we often see narcissists will love bomb at the beginning, which means that they will shower you with gifts, with compliments, with attention and quality time. And they will love bomb the shit out of you at the beginning of those relationships, which makes it that much more exciting and that much more difficult to leave because you're getting all this love and validation. And for folks who have BPD, well, we know that this is fundamentally what we are searching for. So if we have someone who's giving that to us, well, we're not going to want to leave. One of the key differences that we see between toxic and healthy relationships is that in healthy relationships, I'm not saying that it's not normal to be obsessed and shower the person with love and attention at the beginning when we're in that honeymoon phase. It's not what I'm saying, but usually the difference is that in those more toxic relationships, the people will be using those tactics to manipulate you psychologically, to keep you hooked, to ensure you from leaving. So the intention behind the actions are different in the two types of relationships. And for those of us who grew up in a very chaotic and unstable, dysfunctional family environment, being in the midst of a toxic relationship might actually feel quite good and comforting and exciting because we feel equipped to deal with chaos. And when things start to calm down, we might actually start to get nervous and wonder, well, is anything wrong? What's going to happen? This is where the self-sabotaging tendencies might come in more healthy relationships. So this is why it feels so right and comforting to be in that toxic relationship if you have those maladaptive patterns that you're used to from your childhood. The second reason why healthy relationships might feel so boring is because we love a good challenge. Now, bad boys and bad girls are often so good at playing their role that they will often give us clues right off the bat that they're not good for us. And what I mean by this is that they may be emotionally unavailable. They may not be clear with you when you're asking them, well, where is this going? They might provide you answers such as, I really like you and I want to keep seeing you and we'll see where things go. So they're ambiguous about the future. They might even put the blame on you for some things. And what does this make you do? It makes you want them even more. And why? It's because you think, I'm going to be the one to change them. I'm going to be the one to break their bad habits. I'm going to be the person that they finally toss all of their ideals for and falls in love with. And this is me. I am this person. So it makes us grow even more attached to this person. It's partly because we love a challenge. It's also partly because if we have self-worth issues, we actually believe that this is all that we're deserving of. I also think that this is quite normal and maybe even human nature to be more attracted to individuals who are more mysterious and aloof and a little more difficult to get. The reason that healthy relationships might feel boring is that toxic relationships are straight up addictive. So dopamine, which is controlled in the pleasure center, is ignited when you interact with these individuals who are toxic for you. And you can get a sense of being addicted, which is comparable to that of addiction to drugs. While dysfunction may look like dysfunction on the outset, as I had mentioned with this whole notion of the bad boy, the bad girl, where we can clearly pick out or pinpoint red flags, the more that we interact with things that are dysfunctional and we interact with them as if they are our norm, the more that they become our norm, meaning that this functional actually becomes functional. Another thing that feeds into the addictiveness of toxic relationship is something called the sunk cost fallacy. So this fallacy proclaims that you've already sunk in so much time and investment and love and emotions into your relationship that it's really difficult to then leave it at a point which is so far from the outcome that you have predicted in your mind. You don't want to tell yourself that you wasted your time, so you end up staying in that relationship and telling yourself that you're going to keep giving to the relationship and that you're going to make it worth it. And this is kind of like a gambler, someone who's addicted to gambling, who bets their house on a roulette. And they're hoping that this next roll of the dice, this next roll of the roulette will give them everything that they're hoping for. So this is a sunk cost fallacy. We do this in relationships, we do this in other aspects of our lives, but this is really something that is useful in trying to understand why these relationships are so addictive and difficult to leave. The fourth reason why toxic relationships are so difficult to leave is because this is all that you know. Now, unfortunately, for a lot of us who have borderline personality disorders, we grew up in very chaotic and toxic, dysfunctional family environments. And oftentimes, the model which was presented to us by the main adults in our lives was not a healthy one. And so we grew up thinking that this is the way that we are supposed to treat others and be treated ourselves. So whether that's received with over people pleasing, not being assertive, taking everything very personally, blaming others for our suffering. We grew up with these models that then as adults, it's difficult to recognize the extent to which the relationships that we're in are toxic and harmful if we don't know what healthy looks like. The positive thing about this though means that you have the power to control who you choose to be with. You might have dated a lot of people who were toxic for you in the past and had a tendency to blame them and say things like, oh, men or women are the worst. I don't know. I always end up with the worst people who treat me like shit. At the end of the day, there is a common denominator, and that is you. Meaning that, yes, you might be attracting people unwillingly that are not good for you, but you're also not disengaging with those individuals. You're engaging in those relationships because it is all that you know. While this is not your fault, it is your responsibility and within your power to change that. The last reason why toxic relationships are so addictive and difficult to leave, and this is something that I think most people with BPD can relate to, is that you feel as though you are not worthy, that you are fundamentally defective, and the only thing that you're deserving of is people giving you 5 to 10% of their full emotional capacities. Now, if you think that you are deserving of less, you will be accepting of less things. Meaning that if you feel as though some of your expectations are being met, then you're probably going to hang around even though you should leave. And I've had a lot of experiences with this in my past with men where I had a tendency to be attracted to people who were emotionally unavailable, so whether they had just left a relationship or that were physically unavailable, meaning that they were already in relationships, because I felt like I didn't deserve 100% of the other person. I wasn't worthy of having all of their love and affection and of being seen for me. And so I would pursue these people that I knew could not truly give me all of them, because I thought that that was okay. And I was settling for hangouts here and there with people who were in relationships. And yeah, that was, looking back, obviously, I know that that was coming from a really bad and sad place. And it's good information that I have now about myself, but definitely it's something that I've recognized and I've changed and worked on really, really hard, because it's very difficult to find a healthy partner if you're coming or approaching relationships from a place of lack. I understand that it can be really, really difficult to leave these relationships, and it can feel impossible because you might have a yearning for intimacy and you might be feeling lonely, and so you choose to stay in these relationships that give you temporary satisfaction. But remember that these are temporary, meaning that leaving the relationship can actually save you a lot of years of heartaches and disappointments. And you're essentially showing yourself that you can't trust yourself if you're putting your values to the side to satisfy these temporary urges that you have. If you're currently in a toxic relationship that you feel that you cannot get out, there are resources that exist to help you. I will put some in the show notes down below. Call a counselor or a therapist, contact a local hotline for mental health support, talk to friends and family. Really make sure that you're supported and that you have people to back you up when you do finally feel strong enough to leave that relationship. And if you have experienced a toxic relationship or are currently experiencing one, trust me when I will say that you will be stronger on the other side coming out of it. You will have grown as a person. You will have learned to develop self-worth, self-love, self-kindness, and self-compassion. It's a very difficult process, but what is on the other side is worthwhile and beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time today to be here with yourself, to learn about the reasons why you might be stuck in these unhealthy relationships. As always, if you have any questions or concern, you can leave a comment in the comments down below. I always read and respond to all of them. With that said, I wish you all a great rest of your day and rest of your week, and I will see you back here next time for another episode of On the Line.